Oops. Greetings, my fellow free mother sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is known as Utah. And today's date, it is Friday, July 15th, 2016. Yes, I haven't really heard anything of what occurred on the night of rage around the country within the 37 cities. So, if anyone knows what's going on, you can hit me with all the information, and it'll be right at the end of the show. So I'm real curious what happened, any big protest and so forth, because supposed to be happen in Salt Lake City, which I'm like north from there, half hour north from there. Haven't heard anything on what's going on or anything disturbing because it's been 5 p.m. But looks like nothing really occurred because right now everything's pretty quiet as we speak. Yes, it looks like the big thing right now is like everyone's focused on it was going on in Turkey. I had a big Turkey coup, and that's the name of the show. My episode will be the coup in Turkey. And right now I've been just getting some stuff on what's happening. But some people will consider to be a alleged CIA operative or stage or authentic, but when let's just start this off on what's going on. It's from whowhatwhy.org, and it says here about our first report from Istanbul as coup unfolds. What happened was earlier that day they had the bridge, one of the bridges, main bridges was completely shut down, and they never had an official reason. So I was watching some of the videos from RT and a few others, tanks like running over vehicles and helicopters flying over. People had their phones out, videotaping everything. And let's go just check us here on from why will say. It says here, panic rage gripped Turkey on Friday night as NATO's second largest army embarked on a coup against President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, while government supporters rushed to the streets following a call by Erdogan and his prime minister to save democracy. Many others rushed to neighborhood shops to stock up on basic supplies, emptying them of bread, water, and other necessities. Just hours after bars and restaurants had abruptly emptied of the Friday partygoers, a mosque in Istanbul sounded a long and untimely call for prayer at 1:30 a.m., which locals said was identical to the call that announced his death, which many speculated was a rallying cry for the government's religious supporters. In Ankara, pro-government F-16s reportedly shot down a helicopter carrying coup supporters, while a helicopter was shown on television firing at government supporters on the ground. There were so many explosions, it's impossible to sleep. Razou from Ankara said in a telephone interview he lives close to the government quarters and asked that his last name not be used. In Istanbul, gunfire, explosions, and the screeching sound of low-flying military jets rang over the city. Turkish TV showed large groups of government supporters in the city center and in other Turkish cities, but near the first bridge on the Bosphorus, where some of the action between rival security forces was taking place, only few youths with beards loitered late in the night. Turkey is going to hell, one proclaimed. A prominent Turkish democracy activist interviewed by Why said he feared things would end badly, with regardless who wins. Widespread arrests and potentially bloody purges of real or perceived enemies. He echoed concerns shared by many others on social media and born of the country's painful experience with a string of military coups over the past few decades. This has been going on very periodically, I would say. Late into the night, it was clear who had the upper hand with Turkey leaders sending defiant messages in the calls to the media, but with reports of military and police shooting at each other, military jets and helicopters flying low over Istanbul and Ankara, gendarmes taking over bridges, airports, and intersections, a key Western rally in the fight against ISIS is descending into chaos. Aaron Stein, a prominent Turkey expert at the Atlantic Council, tweeted, why has reported extensively on the growing rifts and divisions in Turkey and Erdogan's power grab in recent years. You can read this article by possibly uh, of the coup from a couple months back, and I read it there too, and it's really interesting. So what is this? And it'll take you to a link that says is NATO Islamic anchor headed for a coup, and of course President Erdogan reached for unlimited power rouses opposition. So he's trying to. What happened was he's been like arresting reporters, artists, and so forth that criticize him, and then they're serving time in prison. I know I did talk about this on my past episodes, and the fact is too, technically he is actually violating the nation's constitution, the Republic of Turkey's constitution on freedom of speech. And because they may like do some symbolic things about him being anti-gay or so wherever he don't like being criticized. He considered a threat. There's no threats. How I observe the artwork and people criticizing him, and of course that was probably one of the main reasons why this coup may have happened. But we don't know how authentic it really is. But it could tell you all about it here, about the failed policy, the bloody terror, and so forth, and him want to be a dictator, and it's a lot of suspects and so forth. So you definitely can read this yourself. There's a link for that, so check it out. And you could really, it's like been pre-planned for a good period of time. And we can continue on here from trust.org, which is news.trust.org, with the Thomson Reuters Foundation. Social media access restricted in Turkey Internet Monitoring Group. The outbreak of highly contagious strain of avian flu has stoked fears the disease may become an endemic in the region. It says here, interesting. Yeah, okay, we'll just keep going here. And I don't know why they're putting this bird flu in over Tokyo. Oh, one moment. Let's just bring this back here. Yeah, okay, it came out today. Okay, there you go. It says here social media access restricted in Turkey, internet monitoring groups. This is in the Reuters. It says here access restricted in Turkey on Friday to Facebook Inc., to Twitter Inc., and Alphabet Inc. YouTube shortly after news that a military coup was underway, according to internet monitoring groups. Turkey blocks a group that monitors internet shutdowns in the country, and Dine, which monitors internet performance and traffic globally. But both reported it was difficult or impossible to access social media service in Turkey. Turkey's military said on Friday it had seized powers, but the prime minister said the attempted coup would be put down. The Turkish government under President Tayyip Erdogan had repeatedly moved to block social media in periods of crisis and political uncertainty. It was not immediately clear whether the government or another actor ordered the block late Friday. Government normally implements its internet restrictions through orders to Turkey's main internet service providers. So there's some alleged internet restrictions. However, a lot of the social media groups I went on Twitter and they have video footage and so forth, people using their phones and they're sending it one way or the other. And even what's her name? Susan Sibel Edmonds talked about this too, about you have to really pay attention to this on this whole coup attempt, and she's spot on in those areas. I gotta say, she's very accurate. You can go to her Twitter page, and just tell you all about it, and a lot of good stuff. It's just don't just jump to conclusions. You gotta really think about what's really happening. So now we'll go here by Bloomberg. It says Erdogan lands in Istanbul as Turkey leaders claim coup foiled. It's a big claim now. It says here Turkey's leaders said they are largely quelled an attempted military coup after army officers claimed to have seized power in the country. Clashes persisted in major cities as tanks blockaded roads, soldiers fought with police, and warplanes bombed in parliament in Ankara, which is the capital, of course. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, in a speech from Istanbul's international airport, blamed the coup attempt on a group of followers of U.S.-based Islamic preacher Fethullah Gulen. They will pay the heavy price for their treason, Erdogan said in comments carried by a harbor. Meanwhile, clashes persisted around military headquarters in Ankara, while massive explosions continued to the rock capital, where the city was hit. At least 2 airstrikes in Istanbul. About 60 people have been killed, according to local media outlet Haberturk. Haberturk. Excuse me there. Helping pronounce these names correctly. In earlier comments from this undisclosed location, Erdogan said he's still in charge of the country and urged the public to take to the streets and public squares in resistance. Moscow's broadcast the same from their minarets, and local television showed anti-coup crowds gathered in Istanbul, the largest city in Ankara. Scenes from Turkey as army attempts to seize control. There's a link for that. You can check it out yourself. Prime Minister Binali Yildirim said the situation was largely under control, and top military leaders who weren't involved in the uprising condemned it. Turkey's NATO allies declared their support for the elected government. The army faction behind the rebellion said in an email statement earlier that it ceased power to restore freedom and democracy. They believe they briefly took over state-run TV to broadcast a declaration of martial law, saying the government has lost its legitimacy. The network appeared to have been restored to government control, but CNN Turk, an affiliate with the U.S. news channel, said soldiers entered its headquarters in Istanbul. The coup attempt in Turkey seems to be backed only by a faction in the Turkish military and is unlikely to succeed, says Jorge Benitez, a senior fellow at Brent Scowcroft Center of International Security in Washington. The rest of the Turkish military plus intelligence services will keep Erdogan in power. And there's a lot of things on it. You can look at the quick take explainer on Turkish politics. There's a link for that. So it says here, I'm going to check this out one moment. I don't know how accurate this is. Let's just find out here. Yeah. All right, come on. Yeah, so there's a lot of, comments and so forth on here. And a lot of comments on here, for like videos and so forth. So we'll just keep on going down, 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 down. Okay. All right. U.S.-backed Erdogan and his government, the Obama administration, has absolute support for the elected government of Turkey and his NATO ally. Secretary of State John Kerry said in an email statement. He said he spoke this evening with his Turkish counterpart to pledge his backing. President Barack Obama told Kerry that all parties in Turkey should support the government. The White House said tanks rolled through the streets of the capital as well as in Istanbul, and lawmakers in the Ankara parliament said the building was hit by an airstrike. Turkey's lira plunged as much as 6% against the dollar, the most since 2010. Since 1960, Turkey has experienced at least 3 takeovers by the secular-minded army. The Islamist-rooted AK party government, which came to power in 2002, made it a priority to trim political influence of the military. Turkey's main opposition parties condemned the coup attempt. Kemal Daroglu, head of the secular Republican People's Party, said his group is bound to the free will of our citizens, the cornerstone of parliamentary democracy. Turkish Parliament Speaker Ismail Karaman said he'd been in touch with other parties and they are united against the military takeover. Yildirim told NTV television that the police, traditionally closer to his government, than the tongue-tied there. Traditionally closer to his government than the army, were ordered to use arms if necessary. Television footage showed police officers apparently being arrested by the army, and CNN Turk television said the police fired at military helicopter in Ankara. 17 police were killed in an aerial attack on an anti-terrorism force headquarters in Ankara, Anadolu reported. Erdogan, who previously served as prime minister for more than a decade until 2014, he has been accused by domestic opponents and human rights groups of becoming increasingly authoritarian in attempts to silence critics, which that has been reported in the past. He fought to transform the once largest ceremonial post of president and make it its main seat of power. Under Erdogan, Turkey has also been drawn deeper into some of the region's most intractable conflicts, especially in neighboring Syria. Islamic State militants based there have attacked Turkish cities and border posts, killing scores of people. Excuse me here. A decades-old conflict with separatist Kurdish rebels in the southeast of the country has also been reignited after a 3-year lull. Discontent with Erdogan. The coup attempt is driven by multiple factors, but mainly discontent with Erdogan himself, including his failure to protect the Turkish state from ISIS, has failed Syrian policy. Theodore Karasik, a Middle East analyst at the Gulf State Analytics in Washington, said by email, leading figures felt that their own positions in the military were in jeopardy. The economy has been stretched by the arrival of nearly 3 million refugees fleeing violence in Iraq and Syria, as well as recently resolved diplomatic scraps with Russia after Turkish planes shot down a Russian jet they said had entered the nation's airspace. The coup attempt represents bad news for investors. However, it turns out, said Ahmad Masaik, a London-based strategist and emerging markets consultancy, Escrat Limited, a failed takeover would see all resistance to the AKP stamped out, while a successful one would risk civil strife, given the governing body has hundreds of thousands of vehement supporters, and said in an email. So it's something, like I said, it's big issue going on down there. And like I said, sometimes people gotta reap what they sow. And I'm gonna hit one more article here, which is from the Orlando Sentinel. Turkish officials say coup plotter is being arrested after a night of violence that killed dozens. I had to go see how accurate this is, right? Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan told in the nation Saturday that his government was working to crush a coup attempt after a night of explosions, air battles, and gunfire across the capital that left dozens dead and at least 150 people wounded. Government officials said the coup appeared to have failed as Turks took the streets overnight to confront troops attempting to take over the country. However, the sound of huge blasts, including at least one bomb that hit the parliament complex, continued to ring out in the capital. Ankara and Istanbul throughout the morning. Speaking on national television from Istanbul, Erdogan said the government was arresting coup supporters in the military and warned they will pay the heavy price for their treason to Turkey. According to a transcript of his remarks provided by his office, those who stain the military's reputation must leave. The process has started today and will continue just as we fight other terrorist groups. Prime Minister Binali Yildirim, speaking to the state Anadolu agency, said more than 120 arrests were made. Erdogan said his general secretary had been abducted by coup plotters, flew into Istanbul's Ataturk airport early Saturday and was greeted by large crowds hours earlier as the group got underway. His office declined to say where he was, and he was forced to give an interview over FaceTime to a television station. There's a claim he's trying to seek exile in Germany, according to one comment on Facebook, one post. The chaos capped a period of political turmoil in Turkey, which critics blame on Erdogan's increasingly authoritarian rule, which has included a government shakeup, a crackdown on dissidents and opposition media, and renewed conflict in the mainly Kurdish areas in the southeast. Turkey, a NATO member, is a key partner in U.S.-led efforts to defeat the Islamic State group and has allowed jets to use its Incirlik air base to fly missions against extremists in nearby Syria and Iraq. A coup against the democratically elected government could make it difficult for the United States to continue to cooperate with Turkey. U.S. President Barack Obama urged all sides in Turkey to support the democratic elected government. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said he spoke to Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu and called for respect for democracy. The coup attempt began late Friday with a statement from the military saying it has seized to reinstall a constitutional order, democracy, human rights, and freedoms to ensure that the rule of law once again reigns in the country. For law and order to be reinstated. Fighters, jets buzz overhead, gunfire erupted outside military headquarters, and vehicles blocked two major bridges in Istanbul. Soldiers backed by tanks blocked entry into Istanbul's airport for a couple of hours before being overtaken by pro-government crowds carrying Turkish flags, according to the footage broadcast by the Erdogan news agency. But the military did not appear unified, with top commanders taking to television to condemn the action and order troops to back to their barracks. Those who are attempting a coup will not succeed. Our people should know they will overcome this. General Zekai Askalali, the commander of the military special forces, told the private NTN-TV television by telephone. Fighter jets under control of loyalist forces were flying over the capital. The strike helicopters flown by coup supporters. The Anadolu news agency said NTV reported that one helicopter was shot down. Gunfire and explosions rang out. Erdogan called on Turks to take the streets across the country, as many did, marching through the streets of Izmir and Istanbul, waving Turkish flags, gathering in the main square of Ankara. The Erdogan news agency reported that soldiers fired on a group of people trying to cross Bosporus Bridge to protest the attempted coup, and that some of the people have been hurt. TV footage showed people running for cover amid gunfire. Troops also fired in the air to disperse a growing crowd of government supporters at the Taksim Monument in Istanbul, as many helicopters flew overhead. A nearby mosque made an anti-coup announcement over its loudspeakers. Several blasts and screech of fighter jets were heard in central Istanbul as dawn approached. At least 42 people were killed in the capital. NTV quoted the prosecutor's office as saying Parliament Speaker Ismail Karaman said a bomb hit on one corner of public relations building inside a parliament complex, injuring some police officers. In Istanbul, an official at Haydarpaşa Numune Hospital said at least 150 people were admitted with wounds, but would not comment on whether there were fatalities. NTV reported 6 dead had been brought to that hospital. An official at Istanbul's Sicily Hamidye After Training and Research Hospital said they had also received dead and wounded. Both officials spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not allowed to comment publicly. Parliament Speaker Ismail Karaman said the bomb hit one corner of a public relations building inside a parliament complex, injuring some police officers. In his TV address, Erdogan blamed the attack on supporters of Fethullah Gulen, which he's supposed to be U.S.-based. Erdogan has also long accused the cleric and his supporters of attempting to overthrow the government. The cleric lives in exile in Pennsylvania and promotes a philosophy that blends a mystical form of Islam, a staunch advocate of democracy, education, science, and interfaith dialogue. By Saturday morning, a top Turkish official said the coup attempt appeared to have been repelled. The senior official told the Associated Press that all government officials were in charge of their offices. The official requests anonymity because of the sensitivity of the issue. As the crisis unfolded, there were reports that access to popular social media sites like Twitter and Facebook had been blocked within the country. Facebook declined comment, but Twitter said it suspected intentional interference with the service. So it's a lot of, like I said, you have to. So things are really happening, and like I said before, Erdogan's may not be constitutional friendly. That's why, so you have to look at all angles. And I'm going to add the Turkish constitution in there as well. I'm going to do that right now. Just I'm going to do that right now to get it out of the way, which is pretty interesting. And I'm going to add too, but Sibel Edmonds have discussed the outcome of like this has been happening. This was meant to happen in a couple of interviews, which is one by James Corbett, another one by Lou Rockwell, which they have good shows. You definitely should check it out. And I'm going to add those in the memo as well, especially it says here about the Corbett report. He's really good at what he does. Definitely checked it out. And of course, on Lou Rockwell, he says Sibel Edmonds, ISIS is the U.S., which he does talk about the things going on in Turkey, which was a couple years ago, according to this, published August 27th of 2015, like last year. And of course, here with when Sibel Edmonds explained the CIA's reverse engineering of Erdogan. So she's recommending everyone, even on her Twitter page, to look at everything thorough. Don't jump to conclusions. And she's absolutely correct. So I have to really respect her for that. But definitely, folks, you should just read the Constitution. It's very interesting. So, and I do talk about free speech and all that as well. So, definitely, my friend, that you should always examine everything a lot more than they want you to know, because okay, I can't find it there. Okay, no problem. Excuse me. I'm just trying to. All right, I'm gonna put that on there. The Constitution of the Republic of Turkey. So you can, and it should be under fundamental rights and duties and general provisions and all that. So definitely look that up. I'm gonna add that to my memo with the rest. Put that right with the other interviews, so if you folks can know that, hey, I'm not here to make any of this up. But it's interesting about fundamental rights and freedoms, and of course I got free speech and all that. But when it's about number 2, prohibition of fundamental rights and freedoms, prohibition, abuse. None of the rights and freedoms embodied in the Constitution shall be exercised with an aim of violating the individual integrity of the state, with its territory, the nations, endanger the existence of democratic and secular order of the Turkish Republic based on human rights. So you have to really just check that out. It's Article 14 of their Constitution. So, but the fundamental rights right here, and it says 13, fundamental rights and freedoms may be restricted only by law in conformity with reasons mentioned in relevant articles. So I'll give you the whole rundown there. As says Article 12, everyone possesses inherited fundamental rights and freedoms, which is inviolable and inalienable. So it contradicts, fundamental rights and freedoms. Like if you give you restrictions to the integrity, how far can you go on that? So you definitely check that out, make your own judgment. So I don't know why Article 12 and 13 contradicts Article 12 of the Constitution in my personal view. So definitely you have to, I'm repeating myself, forgive me, look it up yourself, share this information, and make your own judgment, all right? All right, that's enough on hunting what's going on in Turkey, but hopefully people out there will be safe, stay safe out there, and make sure this game gets done real smoothly. All right. Speaking of 9/11, this is from The Intercept. That's here Saudi ties to 9/11 detailed in documents suppressed since 2002. It's by Murtaza Hussein. That's here after years of political wrangling. The suppressed section of a 2002 congressional report that detailed possible ties between the Saudi government and the 9/11 terrorist attacks was released today. The classified documents have been sourced of heated speculation for years as they highlighted alleged links between high-ranking members of the Saudi royal family and the 9/11 hijackers. Many political figures who previously seen the report led charge calling for the release, including former Senator Bob Graham And I think he's a pretty strange. Bob Graham's a real streaky gentleman who was a senator of Florida and the governor of the state as well. And if I'm correct, he possibly is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. So you got to really look at that too. All right. And it says, who said with the 28 page, it says here, Bob Graham, who said 28 pages point a very strong finger at Saudi Arabia, and Minnesota Congressman Rick Nolan, who said pages confirmed that much of the rhetoric preceding the U.S. attack on Iraq was terribly wrong. Suppressed pages, redacted in parts, detail circumstantial evidence of ties among Saudi government officials, intelligence agents, and several of the hijackers. While in the United States, some of the September 11th hijackers were in contact with who or received assistance from individuals who may be connected with the Saudi government, reads the report, which added that FBI sources believe at least two of those individuals were Saudi intelligence agents. The report also mentioned that numbers found in the phone book of Abu Zubaydah, a detainee currently held in Guantanamo, could be traced to a company in Denver, Colorado, connected to a former Saudi ambassador to the U.S. Prince Bardi van Sultan. One of the most notable figures mentioned is Omar al-Bayoumi, alleged by the report who been a Saudi intelligence agent. Al-Bayoumi was in close contact with hijackers Nawaf al-Hazim and Khalid al-Midar, providing them financial assistance during their time in the United States and even helping them find an apartment. Bayoumi, in turn, Truth believed to have been on payroll of the Saudi Ministry of Defense, was regularly in the receipt of large sums of money from the Saudi Ministry of Finance and other undisclosed arms of the government. Another figure highlighted in the documents of Osama Baznan, a Saudi citizen associated with al-Bayoumi and lived in an apartment nearby al-Hazmi and al-Mihar. According to the report, Bazin made a commitment to an FBI source after the attack, suggesting that he did more for the hijackers than al-Bayoumi did. Bazin and his wife received regular payments from the wife of Banar bin Sultan, and on one occasion, Bazin is said to have received a check directly from Bandar's account. Interesting there, huh? Fal, Fal, Fahd al-Tami, a former Saudi consular officer in the United States who served as a imam at a mosque attending by al-Hazmi and al-Badhar, is also mentioned briefly, as is Chali al-Hazin, who is described in the report as Saudi ministry employee official. Al-Hazin stayed at the same hotel as one of the hijackers in the days before the attack. While being interviewed by federal agents after the attack, al-Hazin either passed out or feigned a seizure, causing the interview to be terminated. He later managed to successfully flee the country. Much of the 28 pages, much of the information in 28 pages is not new, has been mentioned in previous released documents on the 9/11 investigation. As such, the public release of these suppressed pages is unlikely to precipitate major changes in the relationship between the United States and the Saudi government. In a statement issued on Friday, the Saudi embassy in the United States said it welcomes the release of the suppressed pages, saying that they exonerate Radi of any direct roles in the attack. While the report does not find any smoking gun pointing to official Saudi involvement, it does highlight one consistently troubling theme of the kingdom's response to the attack: its refusal to cooperate with investigators seeking to uncover information about the hijackers, as the report notes. In testimony and interviews, a number of FBI agents and CIA officers complained to the inquiry about lack of Saudi cooperation in terrorism investigations, both before and after the 9/11 attacks. Referencing a May 1996 Director of Central Intelligence memo, the report cited agencies' belief the Saudis has dropped providing background information on or other assistance of bin Laden because bin Laden had too much information about official Saudi dealings with Islamic extremists in the 80s for Riyadh to deliver him into U.S. hands. So, a lot of skepticism in that, but it's like a few pros and cons on these on these pages, and I know people are really trying to hype it up. And even a person like myself is always got to see how authentic and how accurate it is on these so-called 28 pages. That's why I'm like, I always tell people too that yeah, the Saudi Arabian government may be involved, but they're still part of the One World Order network. I've been saying this for a good 14 years that 9/11 was a New World Order agenda since September 14th, 2001. I'm not here to toot my horn or anything like that, but basically, what I observed, examined, and the problem, reaction, solution, or Hegelian theory, and so forth. And it's just I call this more of a hot potato game. And I know I said it in my past with the other in my past episodes. So I'm like, this one here came from Activist Post, which is by Derek Brose. Well, she's from Houston. I'm from Korea. Yeah, he's from Houston. He has a thing called HoustonFreeThinkers.com. He's on Facebook as well, so check him out. He has some good stuff. You know, I always admire his work. And his report here, and it goes 28 pages will be released, but will the truth be set free? News reports claim that the classified 28 pages of the Senate report on 9/11 will be released by Congress on Friday. So it says here, after nearly 15 years of waiting, and family members of the victims of the 9/11 terror attacks may finally learn new details about what exactly happened on the dark day, including what role the Saudi Arabian government played. The two new reports from CNN and The Hill stated that the classified 28 pages of the large Senate report on 9/11 will be released to the public as early as Friday. Activist Post confirmed the report with the office of Representative Adam Schiff, a House member of the House Intelligence Committee. Sources said there are still some procedural steps that need to be taken before the release, which both members of both parties in Congress and family members of victims have been seeking for years. CNN reported on Thursday the classified 28 pages are part of a joint inquiry into intelligence community before and after the terrorist attacks on September 11th. Not the 9/11 Commission report. Although the final report amounts over 800 pages, the 28 pages were classified by former President George Walker Bush shortly after the report was released in 2002. 28 pages make up the bulk of a section titled Part 4, Finding Discussions and Narrative Regarding Certain Sensitive National Security Matters. Former Senator Bob Grant, a previous chair for the House Intelligence Committee, who has been extensively involved in the fight to release the pages, told CNN that he was very pleased by the announcement. It's going to increase the questioning of the Saudis' role supporting the hijackers. Graham told CNN, I think of this almost as the 28 pages are the sort of the cork in the wine bottle. And once it's out, hopefully the rest of the wine itself will start to pour out. Officials who have seen the documents have stated that the information relates to financing of the suspected terrorists and points a finger at members of the government of Saudi Arabia. Upon seeing the pages himself, Kentucky Republican Congressman Tom Massey said, there will be anger, frustration, and embarrassment when these 28 pages finally come out. Representative Adam Schiff told CNN that the report will be posted online very soon. House Intelligence Committee will get redacted report today or tomorrow, Schiff said. The California Democrats said law enforcement and State Department have approved the release of the pages with minimal redactions. Additionally, Schiff told The Hill that this report is a set of allegations that warrant investigation, not set of conclusions. There has been an increasing amount of pressure on the House and Senate to declassify 28 pages, a resolution which urged President Obama to release these documents to the public. House Resolution 14 has seen a surge in support following a 60-minute report on 28 pages, an increase in co-sponsors, but ultimately had not been successful convincing Obama to release the pages, despite promising the family members of the 9/11 victims that he would release the pages if elected. Obama has done nothing to publicly support the family's efforts for the truth. You know why? Because he's just another bend over Bob and proud. Exactly, another global butt boy. The Intelligence Committee's decision to release the pages could be a direct response to another resolution introduced on July 6 by Congressman Walter Jones with co-sponsors Stephen Lynch and Tom Massey in an attempt to release the pages without presidential involvement. House Resolution 779 directed the chair and ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee to declassify the 28 pages by publishing them in the congressional record under the protection of the Constitution speech or debate clause. H.R. 779 seeks to enforce the Constitution's separation of powers and congressional prerogative of disclosure under the speech or debate clause by ordering the chairman of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the House of Representatives to publish the pages in the congressional record. Based on the latest reports, it seems that the House Intelligence Committee is voluntarily releasing the pages. Where exactly is in the pages? Well, the majority of officials who have seen the pages state that Saudi Arabia is a central topic. Reportedly, pages detail early investigation into 9/11, including questions related to Saudi Arabia, which are ultimately found to be irrelevant to law enforcement. In a recent phone conversation with Truth in Media, Joshua Cook, former Democratic Senator Bob Graham, reiterated that the information in the 28 pages shows finance of the 9/11 hijackers and its point to the Saudi government. In 2015, Graham told Cook that the U.S. government doesn't want the public to know that the Saudi financed the 9/11 attacks because we provide the Saudis with billions in military aid. While there are clear ties to Saudi Arabia, many in the 9/11 Truth movement are cautious of the 28 pages, with some calling the whole fiasco a psychological operation being conducted on the American people. What is the purpose of the PSYOP? The idea would be that the powers that which they were allow control release of the low-hanging fruit. 28 pages and focus attention on Saudi Arabia rather than a possible connection to the U.S. government, Pakistan, or Israel. Exactly. Other words, scapegoating. This allows the public and some 9/11 researchers to feel like there has been some victory, and now we can call all back the normal life. Also, this keeps the conversation on 28 pages and not on the other anomalies which occurred on September 11th, 2001. There is also the fact there has been public record for many years that the majority of alleged hijackers has ties to Saudi Arabia. Of course. The fact that these pages are going to be released at all should be celebrated, but it should not cause the 9/11 Truth movement to rest for a single moment. Exactly, I have to agree with him on that. With the 15th anniversary approaching in less than 2 months, it's a grand opportunity to have conversations about the many questions surrounding the attacks. After all, even if the Saudis were involved, it does not explain how the buildings could fall at near free fall speed, or how or why the World Trade Center 7 fell despite not being hit by a plane. Stay vigilant and keep searching for truth, friends. And Mr. Bros is absolutely correct. So it won't be the nail in the coffin, just another chapter that it can be leaked and probably get more people closer to the actual truth of what happened on that horrific event. That's why I say it's the Saudis in this are part of the One World Order network, and the other countries that were involved in there as well that was addressed in this article. So definitely, folks, don't just sit back and just say it's all over. It's just another chapter, and we got to keep pushing, and pushing. Because remember, this is not 1960s, not the 1960s anymore. Thanks to technology, we can really push forward and put this information out, at least plant those seeds one at a time. So I always recommend if you're going to go out to these little facilities on September 11th, have cool, honorable discussions with people out there. I won't use inside job because it's too vague or too bland. I always say a New World Order agenda. Talk about Building 7. How come it went down around 5:30? I'd say about 5:30 or 5:20 p.m. around that time, between 5:20 and 5:30, and it went down without any planes hitting it. Something to really think about. So, but like I said, this is just a good thing, but it's not its entirety. All right, so like I said before, keep doing your homework, spread this message to everyone you know. The truth has to come out on that horrific day. It's not just for the country, but for the families and everyone else around the world. That's why I always said 9/11 was a New World Order agenda, and I'm not hesitant or not shy to say this. speaking this out for the past 14 years. And I'm not tooting my horn either. And I am digressing, so forgive me. All right. Next one here. It says from Derek Bros again. Yeah, House passes GMO labeling bill. Obama set to sign. A controversial bill that will prevent states from creating their own labeling standards for genetically engineered foods has passed the House of Representatives and now heads to President Obama's desk. On Thursday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a measured aim by creating a federal standard for labeling genetically engineered or modified foods. Genetically modified or engineering seeds are engineered to have certain traits such as resistance to herbicides. The majority of the United States corn and soybean crops are now GE, including a large portion that is used for animal feed. Only days after the Senate passed their version of the bill, the U.S. House passed the bill with 306 to 117. This bill would put the U.S. Department of Agriculture in charge of establishing a uniform national disclosure for human food. This is or may be bioengineering. Critics of the federal standards worry about the USDA being pressured by biotechnology companies that have a close relationship to U.S. regulatory agencies. The proposal also requires companies producing foods with GE ingredients to post a label, including text on package, a symbol, or a link to a website with sorry about that, to a website via a QR code or similar technology. The bill will also prevent states from localities from passing their own labeling measures. The House and Senate bill were equally controversial with a QR language that will allow manufacturers to direct consumers to a website or provide or a QR code for scanning. Critics have argued that the QR code or websites will discriminate low-income and elderly population who may not have access to the internet or smartphone. It was being behest of big industry that the QR code be listed as an option. Representative Jim McGovern, Democrat from Massachusetts, said not what's in the interest of the American consumer, but there are a few special interest wants. McGovern also called for clear and easy to understand label or symbol, not some crazy QR code that only creates more hassle or confusion. Yeah, please. Food ingredients like beet sugar and soybean oil, which can be derived from genetically engineered crops, but contain next to no genetic material by the time they are processed, may not fall under the laws of the definition of bioengineered food, critics say. Reuters reported about the Senate version. Other critics of the bill say that GMO corn may also be excluded from labeling. This means that beet sugar, soy, and corn, the crops which are among most genetically modified in the world, might not be covered under the current language of the bill. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) raised concern about the involvement of the USDA in a list of worries sent in a June 27th memo to the Senate Agriculture Committee, Reuters noted. It is important that both Senate and House versions of the bill are extremely similar to the controversial Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act, which passed the House in June 2015, but ultimately failed amid heavy opposition. To critics, the bill was known as DARK, Deny Americans the Right to Know Act, because the law was also aimed at nullifying GMO labeling. Measures such bills passed in Vermont. As with the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act, the new bill could indeed lead to Americans being kept in the dark about what exactly is in their food. When it comes to food policy, more Americans are questioning the influence of biotechnology giants like Monsanto. Recently, Common Dreams reported in data revealed by OpenSecrets.org and the Organic Consumer Association that senators who have voted for a procedural vote in the favor Senate bill received more than twice as much in contributions from the agricultural lobby than those who voted no. $867,518 for the supporters versus $350,877 for our opponents. Nearly every outlet and educated journalist is expecting Obama to sign the bill in a typical doublespeak fashion. The bill is being sold as a beneficial thing for the American people. Once again, the people will be handed a trophy and told that success has been achieved. After all the years of the march against Monsanto, the U.S. government has relented and will make sure that the food supply is properly labeled, or at least that's the version of events being sold by Deadstream media and politicians who stand to benefit. In reality, people are fighting a losing battle over the mainstream food production system. The powers which they were as partnered by big ag and biotech giants who continue to push genetically modified foods, pesticides, and more dependence on these mainstream food production systems. The answer, extreme localization and creation of local food production, is possible and is inviolable for anyone who truly seeks to be food independent. And that's the solution. 10th Amendment, local stuff, and even states' rights. Support your local farmers because this is totally ridiculous. And of course now, if he signs this, it proves one thing: that Barack Obama was never for the American people. And I would check out the. I haven't seen the voting system yet, but if I do, everyone should find out who these people are and go after these clowns, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or Independents. It doesn't matter. Like you're saying, elephants and asses are screwing the masses. All right, that's how I look at it. And it's a real shame when you have these biotech giants and big ags trying to tell everyone what's good and what's not, and they want you to assume that it's very healthy, which I find it totally uncalled for. So definitely, my friends, keep on doing the fight. Support the local farmers. Tell Barack Obama if he signs it, tell him he's a piece of garbage, and anyone else that voted on it, ridicule him at every campaign. If they're in your district, start calling these vultures out. All right, real disturbing, I would say. But finally, this is from RT. Actually, it originally came from I got this from David Icke, and this is who is Trump's running mate? 7 things you might not know about Mike Pence. It says here, Indiana Governor Mike Pence is likely to be selected as Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's running mate. He is on a short list with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich and New Jersey Governors Chris Christie. Huey and Dewey, I call them. I'm sorry, friends. I just gotta laugh. It's pretty damn insulting. You got Krispy Kreme donuts, and you got the CFR stooge Newt Gingrich. Come on, pathetic. The the Indiana governor is a staunch conservative with is well known and generally well liked figure in Republican circle. He has been in public office since 2000, most of that time in Congress, where he served 6 terms before becoming governor in 2013. But here are the top 7 things about Pence you may not know. 1. He endorsed Ted Cruz for president. Sort of. Okay, so he supported null and void Cruz. It says here, Governor Pence was very slow to show support for any Republican presidential candidate in the Indiana primary. That's 4 days before voters cast their ballots. However, he half-heartedly backed Texas Senator Ted Cruz, but was also quick to state boldly, "I'm not against anybody." This was perhaps politically astute, as Trump trounced Cruz with a 16% lead, winning 53% to 37%. Cruz dropped out of the presidential race that night. And remember, he's a natural-born Canadian, so that's why I call him null and void Cruz, and some people call him Bush Light. All right, continue on here. 2. Pence is the guy who backed religious freedom over cakes for gays. Pence became a household name for backing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which have allowed businesses in the states to deny services to gay people for religious reasons. This bill is not about discrimination, and if I thought that it legalized discrimination in any way in Indiana, I would have vetoed it. Governor Pence famously tried to reassure reporters in 2015 it doesn't even apply to disputes between private individuals unless government action is involved. But the bill brought him heat from Democrats and LGBT activists. It also caused governors in 2 states to ban official state business to travel to Indiana and led threats to boycotts by leading corporations, including NASCAR and the NBA. Pence signed an amendment to law which stated it could not be used to discriminate gay people. But his stance made the state the butt of a joke at the 2015 White House Correspondents' Dinner. Well, I will say this on that area. Hey, if you get the Religious Freedom Act, I told people this: have bakers who are atheists or Church of Satan members, open it up, man, and get their business, okay? 3. He spent $1 million on damage control after the cake fight. The state of Indiana hired a New York public relations firm to strengthen its image as a welcome place to live, visit, and do business. Everyone saw it was about damage control after the fight over the religious freedom bill. The Associated Press reported the state Senate appropriations can be added $1 million to tourism funding in the state budget specifically for the purpose. 4. Wanted to ban Syrian refugees. Pence tried to bar state agency for helping Syrian refugees from resettling in his state. He also tried to cut state funding to the nonprofit organization Exodus Extreme Immigration. This directive came 3 days after multiple attacks in Paris, where a Syrian passport was found near the bodies of the attackers. Passport was later found belonged to one of the 230 people who died in the attack. A nonprofit group sued Pence, and the ACLU argued the government violated the U.S. Constitution. An Indianapolis federal judge in March that the governor's directive clearly discriminates against Syrian refugees based on their national origin, according to the AP. Well, I'll look at it this way. Not the whole Syrian refugees. There's like even claims, a lot of them not even Syrians, but they were like militant individuals and so forth. And one thing I tell people, you got to tell those globalist SOBs to stop bombing these countries. I look at both ends, okay, and I'm being very fair on that. All right, it says here, 5. Funeral rights for fetuses. Pence, devout evangelical Christian, described himself as a Christian, a conservative Republican in that order. In March, Indiana joined North Dakota to ban abortions for fetal abnormalities. The measure also decriminalized the procedure when motivated solely because of factors such as fetus, sex, or race. Pence called it a comprehensive pro-life measure that affirms the value of all human life in a statement, but even Republican lawmakers in his state argued against the measure. On a roll, Pence signed a truly bizarre bill that would have forced women to seek a funerary service for a fetus, no matter how far along the pregnancy was or whether she had an abortion or miscarriage. The bill would have required the fatal tissue to be cremated or buried. The wording of the burial provision meant that technically, even if a woman had a miscarriage and at 8 weeks of pregnancy at home, she would have to keep the blood and tissue, take it to the hospital, and have it buried and cremated by the funeral home. Thankfully, the bill was blocked from going into effect last month by a federal judge because it violated a woman's right to choose. Yeah, pretty strange things there. I'll be honest, personally, I'm not fond of abortion on an overall basis. Okay, I'm not here to legislate or anything like that. It's just my own personal views, and it doesn't mean I'm gonna tell you what to do. But I always say this about abortion. You wanna reduce abortion? I tell everyone, will you please be sexually responsible? I say that on a consensual basis, especially between adults. All right. Okay, 6. Pence propaganda. In January last year, Pence tried to launch a state-run, taxpayer-funded news service called Just In, which have featured breaking news stories written by press secretaries and light feature stories. The idea was met by revulsion by small Indiana newspapers and national news media. A publisher of the Portland Commercial Review said, "I think it is a ludicrous idea, a notion of elected officials presenting material that will developly have a pro-administration point of view is antithetical up to the idea of an independent press." 7. Interesting. So state funded here. Interesting stuff here. Wow. Good grief. Okay, 7. Facing competitive re-election. Pence is running for re-election this year, and his religious freedom debate did him no favors in his bid. He faces businessman John Gregg, who Democrat recruited, branding him a gun-toting, Bible-quoting Southern Democrat. The Washington Post is watching the race as a top five seats likely to flip parties. Under Indiana law, Pence is prevented from seeking 2 offices at once. He faces a Friday deadline to withdraw from the governor's race. So, see if he does it today, because there's talk about him maybe be a running mate for Trump. So if he decides to run for Trump, he has to step down. That's just the name of the game. So interesting 7 things about Mike Pence. And I'm not being a high horse on this, but you gotta look at the pros and cons. So that's one thing I always observe, examine, and all that good stuff. So, well, like I said, it's up to you folks. But Newt Gingrich, come on, he's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. He is not a freedom guy. And New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, come on. You know, the guy's an attorney and talks about fighting the war on terror, and who cares about the Bill of Rights? Guys are pathetic. If Mr. Trump's smart, he's got to get someone in there that can really take the oath of office by heart. And that is really it. No songs today, so sorry about that. I thank everyone for listening to this show, and please feel free to download and share this information throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, whether it's agree or disagree, don't matter, or got information you want to send me, that'd be great. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr. I said YouTube already, right? Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. And I always recommend, please send your correspondences with decorum. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com. Well, it's just another day in paradise, I would say, in Roy, Utah. So, say just keep on listening, keep on sharing, and everyone can make a difference. All right? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.